We're finally going to have a college football video game again. Who will be the highest ranked Gopher players? We're diving into our guesses today.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden
no matter what
Gophers,
we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
your daily podcast on the Minnesota
Whatever
Golden
turns out, however it
Gophers.
turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You are listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And today we have a fun show coming off an awesome basketball night for the Gophers hoops, where they get another needed win. We're talking all football today. We're going to talk about what PJ Fleck can do to help propel this program in 2024, get the excitement back, basically putting a motor on this boat so we can continue to row. So what are the things that can re-inspire the fan base and the program and help them build towards the future? On top of that, we're going to jump into the NCAA 25 video game dropping this summer and give you our best guess at what predictions could be for the Gophers player ratings, who could be some of the highest players for the Gophers, and then we'll finally talk about the NCAA 25 Big Ten Conference and how I think the ratings will go for the entire conference, including some of the best players on each team. So hopefully you enjoy that. You'll sit back, you'll relax, and you'll let me know your thoughts on what you're looking forward to most of the game, who will be the highest rated players, or anything else related to Gopher football. Drop it down in the comments below and we'll get this thing going. But first, we got to kick it off, like I said, with how can Coach Fleck propel this program in 2024, get the excitement going again, get recruits all ecstatic to be a part of this thing that is building here in Minnesota, and also get back to the winning ways? So I think there are a number of things that really are pertinent for Coach Fleck in 2024. And like I said, putting a motor on this boat, helping it row at 10 times its speed, helping it go further, faster, and stronger. How can we go further in 2024? So I think the main things Coach Fleck needs to happen in 2024 in order to jumpstart the program, get recruits excited even more than they have been in the past few years, and get back to some consistency and some hopefulness within the Big Ten Conference. I think that first things first, you have to have better passing game numbers in 2024. Now, I'm not saying they have to be a top passing team. And again, I've told you time and time again here at Locked On Golden Gophers, I do not think that they're going to crack into the top 100 teams when it comes to pass attempts, because Coach Fleck hasn't shown that with the Minnesota Gophers in any of his 7 years here. So I'm not going to hold my breath that it's going to happen in year 8. That being said, I do expect those numbers to be more efficient. I do expect to have a quarterback who passes for more than 2,000 yards passing. I do expect for the Gophers to have production in that wide receiver room because they have so many talented wide receivers, and that is pertinent for the future in helping you get more quarterback recruits, more wide receiver recruits to be interested in coming to play here in Minnesota. Now, you've got a lot of talent, especially in that wide receiver room. You've got Daniel Jackson, who was the top 3 receiver in the Big Ten Conference last season. You've got Christian Driver, a transfer coming in from Penn State, highly recruited kid. Father is Donald Driver, has had one of the best examples of how to play the wide receiver position from his father. You have Elijah Spencer, who has been very productive prior to coming to Minnesota, and also held his own, started games last year, and I think he is ready for a big leap year in 2024. You've got Lemeki Brockington coming back from injury. You've got Kenrick Lanier, who was a high upside freshman last year. He'll be a redshirt freshman this year who could play some snaps this year. TJ McWilliams has a lot of hope. There's a deep receiver room position, and the Gophers have to capitalize on that. That means getting multiple players above 300 receiving yards. That means getting to at least 2 receivers above that 500-yard receiving yard mark, and getting your quarterback above 2,000 yards to help re-inspire and motivate and show that this offense can pass the ball. So that is number one of what Coach Fleck can do in 2024 to help propel the program. Now, another thing that would take it would take this program further and help people get re-inspired, remotivated, excited about Minnesota when it comes to wanting to play here or the fan base getting back on track. I think overall, you got to get back to 8+ wins. Now, if that means 7 wins in the regular season and a bowl win, that'll do for a 2024, for a bounce back coming off of a 5-6 win season last year. You have to find a way to get back into the conversation of, oh, we are consistently going to be a better team, a competitive team, a team that can pull off an upset. And so I think overall, the Gophers have to get back to those winning ways. You had 3 years, the last 3 full seasons where you had 9 or more wins. If you can get back towards that, maybe a game away from it, or get right back to it and show that 2023 was more of a fluke due to injuries, due to a younger team and all that, I think that can go a long way to show recruits, to show the fans, look, we have consistency. We have something building here, and we are on the right track. There might be a bump in the road at times. There may be a pothole that makes you pull off to the side of the road. But when all is said and done, you're going to fix the tire. You're going to plug the hole in the boat. You are going to get back on track and be back to the winning ways. So I think overall, if they can get back to 8+ wins, that is going to do major things for the Gophers. Getting better passing game numbers is going to do major things for the Gophers. But I mentioned in that explanation, what could be huge for the Gophers in 2024 is pulling a big upset. Now, when you look at the Gophers over the last few years, besides 2019, there hasn't been a game that you're like, oh my gosh, the Gophers just pulled off this massive upset against a team they were not supposed to beat. Now, some might say against Iowa last year, but I think Iowa and Wisconsin are always games. Rivalry games are always games that you can go out there and you can get a win. No matter if you're in your worst year or you're in your best year, whoever it is, you can always struggle or always find a way to win against your rivals. I think that's plain and simple. You see it at every level of college sports. You see it in college basketball, college football, what have you. Even in the NFL, you see more upsets with rivalry games. So I didn't count the Iowa game last year as a big upset that wasn't expected. I think the last big upset we've seen is that Penn State victory at home in 2019. Other than that, the game that Minnesota was supposed to lose, the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, and what have you, North Carolina last year, they've lost. So if Minnesota can get it back on track, get some excitement going, and pull off a big win this season, a big upset, whether it's USC, which is probably going to be favored against us, whether it's Michigan, whether it's Penn State, if they can pull off a big upset and do it convincingly, I think that is going to only help your case moving forward. It's going to re-motivate the fans. You light a fire, the attendance will go up. I think if you can get that done, you're going to see some propelling of the program in 2024. So those are the 3 things I think that can definitely help re-inspire this program, re-inspire the fan base, and get things going back on track in 2024 after a struggle in 2023. Now, a couple other things that I think will contribute to success include making this defensive force. The defensive coordinator is going to be aggressive, maybe blitz and take some risks more so than what we are used to. But if it works, if it gets it going, that could be the beginning of a great identity in the new Big Ten landscape. So that could be huge. And I am excited and looking forward to what Coach Heatherman could do with this defense. Now, on top of that, one thing that hasn't been done since like 1999, 2000 is winning both rivalry trophies in the same year. If Coach Fleck can get that done, complaints are going to be down. Negativity is going to be down. The fan base is going to go bananas. So if he can find a way to get both rivalry trophies in the same year, now we had them at the same time last year because we won the Axe the year prior, and we had Floyd during the year last year, but then we lost the Axe. If you can get it done in the same year, that is going to be something that many Gopher fans talk about for years to come. And hopefully you can make that more consistent, but getting it done the first time, getting over the hump the first time is the first step. And so I think that would be a massive thing for the Gophers in 2024. And then finally, the last thing I think that could really help propel the Gophers next season is if they can win big. Enough of the hold your breath games, enough of the down to the wire every week, whether it's a good team or a bad team or getting blown out by really good teams. If Minnesota can start to get some big wins against quality competition, light it up against Rutgers, light it up against Who else do we have? North Carolina in game one. If you can light it up and get some big wins, the noise and the respect across the conference and across the media nationally are going to start to build once again. And people will start to take this program more seriously in the new Big Ten with 18 teams. That's the way you want to start things out, because if you can put yourself into the conversation right away in this new era, then recruits are going to start to see it as, oh, we could go there and we can compete with these USCs and we can compete with these Oregons and Michigans and what have you. Now, I'm not saying you're always going to win, or you might not always even keep it close. But what I'm saying is, if you can go out there, win big against your UNCs, win big against a Michigan State in the future or what have you, but win big against Illinois, win big against a rival. If you can get those things done, then you might start to get some more traction with a few more 4 stars, and then help yourself build that recruiting pool. And as these last 3 classes, which I am very high on, 2022, 2023, 2024, those recruiting classes, I think they're going to do big things for this Gophers program. And if you can continue to build on that and show their successes and show that things can get done with your wide receivers, with your running back, the O-line is still staying top notch, and the defense is getting fired up and getting the blitzes and getting the excitement plays going, that is how you can take the next step up with the program. So 2024 is a big year for Coach Fleck, and hopefully we will see some of those things come to fruition. But next, we're going to talk about the NCAA football game coming out this summer, NCAA 25. I want to talk about who we think is going to be the highest rated Gophers. That's what's coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about a new friend of the show, because, right now, Ibotta is the place to be. Now, grocery bills are so expensive these days. I just had to get new groceries for the household, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Now, Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you are beating the inflation no matter what you are purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. So you can buy that flight you've been eyeing for that next trip, that next vacation, whatever you got going. You can make sure you get that cash back over at the Ibotta app. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code Locked On College when you register. So register on the Ibotta app and use promo code Locked On College, and you will get $5 immediately credited to you. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use promo code Locked On College. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use code Locked On College. All right, Gophers fans, I am super stoked for this NCAA football game. It's only been like a decade since we've had the last one. I'm looking forward to building that dynasty, bringing the Gophers back to the playoffs, and so much more. And I'm guessing a lot of listeners are looking forward to it as well. But I thought something we could do and have a little bit of fun with is, who will be the highest rated Gophers when the new game drops? And I wanted to look at it from a realistic perspective, not who I think should be rated the highest, but who I think the game is actually going to give the most credit to heading into the new NCAA year. So overall, when I was looking at the highest rated players, I went over to the tangible things we can look at. I went over to the Big Ten awards, the all conference teams, to look at who is getting credit across the board from media and coaches, because I think those things will play a factor into who gets rated higher, who has the respect across the country, and who are the names that will be recognizable, which thus could maybe get you some higher ratings. So overall, when you're looking at that, we had one all Big Ten first team player last year, and that was Dragan Kesich, the kicker. I think he is going to be one of the top 3 rated players on the Gophers roster next year. He'll probably be the best rated kicker in the Big Ten Conference due to winning that award last year. But how high is too high when it comes to a kicker? I think overall they're going to give him some respect, and they're going to put him in that 88 to 90 range. So I'll split the difference and say I think Dragan Kesich is going to be an 89 on the new NCAA game when it drops. Now, the next up, all Big Ten second team players. Ariante Ursary, and Daniel Jackson. I think those three players are going to be your top three Gophers on the roster when it comes to the ratings when the game first drops. Now, when the updates come and things like that, who knows what happens from there. But I think overall, when the game first drops, Ariante Ursary is going to be the highest rated Gopher on the game. I think he's going to be in the high 80s, low 90s, and I'm going to call my shot. I'm going to shoot my shot and say he is the only player that is rated in the 90s for the Gophers when the game first drops. And I think he's going to be rated at a 90. He was a top 5 pass blocking, or not pass blocking. He was a top 5 run blocking tackle in the conference last year, I believe. And he was a top 5 graded player at the left tackle position last year in the entire country. So I think Ariante Ursary is going to get some love and he's going to be rated at a 90. Now you move over to that other second team player, Daniel Jackson. That's my guy. That's my one of my favorite players on the entire roster. The separation he creates, the route running he has. I think that the game is going to respect that. They're going to give him some nice statistics in those categories. But I think overall he's going to come in the high 80s, and I'm going to guess that he comes in at an 87. Now, the next up beyond that, those were the players that made the all-conference teams last season. Now, Cody Lindenberg got an honorable mention in prior seasons, I believe, but I don't think he's actually made the first or second team. I didn't double-check that before we hopped on here, so definitely call me out if I'm wrong there. But honorable mention players, I think, are still going to get some love. Justin Wally was an honorable mention by coaches and media last year. I think he's going to come in at 86. Darius Taylor was an honorable mention last year with coaches and media. I also put him at an 86, and I think he's going to have a lot of room to grow as updates maybe come through for the game. Quinn Carroll, again, another player honorable mention with coaches and media. Lots of experience, comes from Notre Dame to Minnesota, so he might get a little bit of love going to a blue blood or a big school, so to speak. So overall, I put him at an 84. And then you had two more all-conference honorable mentions last year, Danny Strigout, Ja Joyner. I put Ja Joyner at an 85 due to his high pressure rate percentages and also the 7.5 sacks he had last year. I think they're going to give him some credit there. They'll put him right smack dab at an 85. Danny Strigout, I've got an 81. Now, the other players outside of that grouping that I think could be rated above an 80 are Cody Lindenberg, who had an 83, Jack Henderson, who had an 81, Max Brosmer, who I gave some respect and put at an 80. Now, I could see the game being a little wonky, putting him down in the 70s and making him earn it. But I think with what he did in the FCS and how he was second place for the Walter Payton FCS Award, which is the FCS Heisman, basically, I think maybe they'll give him some love, give him an 80 on the dot, and let him either go up or down from there. I think C.A. Bangura is going to get a good rating at an 82 because of his success that he had in the MAC conference and coming in over as a transfer. And then the final player I have rated right at an 80. I put a question mark next to it, but that's Coy Parrish due to his recruiting rankings, being in the top 100, winning the All-Star or the All-American Bowl game MVP for the high school prospects. I think they're going to give him some love there. I think he comes in at an 80. And all in all, I think the Gophers will have about a dozen or so players that may have a ranking in the 80s or better. I think Minnesota will have either 0, 1, or 2 players in the 90s, depending on if Dragan Kesich sneaks in there. But like I said, Ariante Ursary would be my best guess at it. And then finally, when you're looking at roster updates for the Gophers in the game from users that have created it, you'd see typically about 12 or so players in the 80s or better for the Gophers. So I think that's a good track. It's a good baseline, and I think it checks out. Now, if you disagree, if you think I'm missing a player, if you think I have too many, let me know down in the comments. I'm curious on your thoughts, and I hope you guys are as excited about this new game coming back out, and hopefully they don't mess it up as I am. But speaking of that, I want to get over to the Big Ten Conference as a whole. How do I think that the entire conference is going to be rated as team rankings? That isn't my personal rankings, but I think the Gophers might not get as much love in that category. And we're going to talk about what I think those overall Big Ten rankings are going to be from the NCAA 25 game coming up next. First, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel because the NBA is in full swing. It's the best time to watch the NBA as you gear up for the playoffs. But once the playoffs hit, that's where the real stars start to shine. And I think it's the best time to get buckets with your first bet over at FanDuel as well, who is America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning bet of $5 or more. That's $150 if your bet wins. Now, that sounds like free money to me. All you got to do is make sure you pick the easiest bet you can make, a lock bet. Basically, look for when your Celtics are playing the Detroit Pistons or the Timberwolves are playing whoever the worst team in the West is. Lock it in at $5 and cash in on $150 in bonus bets when that bet wins. Now, you can bet on all your favorite NBA players, teams, and much more with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. And the fun is only just starting. MLB will be here before you know it. NHL is still in full swing as well. And so you can definitely go visit fanduel.com/lockedon to take advantage of this new customers offer and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA and of Locked On. All right, Gophers fans, we are wrapping this up with the Big Ten Conference team rankings and the top players on each team in my estimations when it comes to the NCAA 25 video game coming out this summer. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is not my personal rankings in the conference of what they would be. We'll get to that later in the offseason after I've done some more research and really looked at who's been added, who is gone, how the spring sessions went, and what have you. But until then, this can serve as a little forewarning, a little foresight on what I believe will be the team rankings and how the Gophers will be maybe disrespected in those rankings as the game officially drops this summer. Now, this is what I believe EA is going to do, giving the benefit of the doubt probably to more of the helmet schools or the schools that have fan bases that hype them up a lot more, and to get those fan bases excited, or they have some younger players that are some of the future stars in the waiting that people are guessing. I think that's going to get more credit than results that have happened in the more recent past. So overall, I think the #1 team coming into the year for the Big Ten Conference on this game is going to be Ohio State. I think they're going to be a top 2, top 3 team on the entire game, and I think they're going to be rated a 95 overall as a team. Their top players are going to be Caleb Downs, Denzel Burke, and then both the running backs, Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Now, the next team I have in the conference for EA is Oregon, coming in at a 93. The top players will likely be Dylan Gabriel, the transfer quarterback coming in, Tez Johnson, who was one of the most productive receivers on their team last year. And then I think DJ Uangalele's brother, I think his name is Mateo, will be a defensive end that gets a lot of high rankings. And then Dante Moore, the backup quarterback who also transferred in from UCLA, I think is going to get some love on his ratings. Third team in the conference for EA's rankings, I think is going to be Penn State at an 89. Not the champions, not Michigan, who just comes off winning a national championship, but they just lost so many players, so many starters, and their head coach. I think EA is going to take that into consideration. I think they're going to give Penn State an 89. The top players are going to be Nick Singleton, Abdul Carter, who is definitely getting NFL looks and interest right now, and then Katron Allen and Drew Aller. I think Michigan comes in as your 4th team in the Big Ten. I give them an 88 from EA. I think their top players are going to be Donovan Edwards, Josiah Stewart, Makari Page, and Will Johnson. So they're still going to have some studs on the defense, but I think there's going to be a lot of questions about the quarterback and the wide receivers on that team. You come into #5 in the Big Ten Conference. I think USC is going to be rated an 86. I think their top players, Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, Jaquavius Marks, the running back transferring in, and then Emmanuel Pregnon. I think those are going to be the top players, all of them on offense. I still think their defense is going to be pretty sus. And then you move on to the #6 team in the conference. I think EA is going to give it to Iowa, and I think they're going to give it to them at an 84. Now, their top players are going to be Luke Lachey, the tight end, Caden Proctor, the transfer in from Alabama, Sebastian Castro, Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, all defensive players that were on that team that balled out defensively for the past few years now. I think that's what's going to look like for the Hawkeyes. I've got our other rival, Wisconsin, coming in at 7th in the 83 ranking. I think overall their top players are going to be Ches Malusi, the running back, Jack Nelson, an offensive lineman, Will Pauling, a wide receiver, and then Kamoy Latu, a safety. I think those are going to be the top players. I don't think that Tyler Van Dyke is going to be a top 4 player for them, but we'll see what happens if the name recognition really carries its weight. Moving into the number 8 team in the conference for this game, I think Michigan State's going to come in. I think they are going to love Aiden Childs, and the transfer portal rankings all loved him. I think that EA is going to follow step for step on that one. Charles Brantley, Darius Snow, Derek Harmon, all returning for that defense. I think they're going to be rated well as well. I've also got number 9 tied with number 8, Washington, coming in at an 81. Now, the top players will be that quarterback, Will Rogers, transferring in, Landon Hatchett, and then also Jonah Coleman, a running back, coming with the head coach from Arizona. Then the number 10 school, in my opinion, that EA will say, again, not my personal opinion, I think Nebraska is going to come in at number 10 with an 80 ranking overall. Their top players are returners Bryce Benhart, Isaac Gifford, Ty Robinson, but then also the young freshman number 1 recruit in the country, Dylan Raiola, is going to get some love and some hype, and I think that's going to help bring Nebraska to an 80 or higher rating in this game. Now, every other team in the Big Ten Conference I have under an 80 because I think EA is not going to like it. Whether it's the helmet, whether it's the not enough star players, I think EA is going to definitely underrate the next few teams. I've got Maryland coming in at 11 with the 79 top players, Kai Feltner, Roman Hemby. UCLA coming in at a 78 with J. Michael Sturdivant as their best player. Minnesota coming in at a 77 as the 12th best team in the conference. We just talked about all their players, so I won't give some names there. Northwestern coming in at 13th with a 76 top player being AJ Henning. Indiana coming in at 74 overall. Rutgers coming in at 74 overall. Their top players, Indiana would be Curtis Rourke, transfer quarterback coming in. Rutgers would be Kyle Monagai, the running back who was a stud last year. And then the final 2 teams on the NCAA 25 rankings, I think, will be Illinois and then Purdue. I think Illinois comes in at 73. Purdue comes in at a 72. Purdue's best player is going to be the all-freshman player, Dylan Thieneman. And then I think the top player for Illinois is going to be the linebacker, super productive Dylan Rosiak. Let me know what your thoughts are below. Let me know if you think I'm way off base, if you think I'm right because they're just going to be too focused on the helmets, or what you think it's going to be. I love the thoughts. I love the excitement building around another way for NCAA fans and college football fans to unite and be able to get excited about something in the new game coming back out that hasn't been released in a decade. Until then, we're going to keep you posted. Next week, we'll have some more shows to wrap up the month of February. I can't believe it's almost done. But we'll see you then, and hopefully we'll be talking about a Gophers win on Sunday night against Nebraska. Until then, I'll see you next time. Row the boat, Sky Go Gophers, as always, and don't forget to subscribe.